Hi, welcome to the small shed on Saturday. It's time to have a look at something different again. This week I was asked if I could do some milling on some castings that we needed to do on our model railway layout at the club I'm in, and that's coming up next. Well, one of the things I do, as well as the bits and pieces of woodwork I bodge at, is casting bits and pieces in resin, and we had some masters made with a 3D printer for some wall sections on a building that had got to be made for the club layout, and they didn't come out quite as well as we'd hoped, so they asked me if I could mill all the brickwork detail off the existing pattern, and we could then replace the brickwork with something a bit more appropriate. So that's going to come up. I'll just show you how that's done. Before that, I've got a bit of unboxing to do as it's Saturday. A few things have arrived. The shed is looking like an absolute tip at the moment because I've got all sorts of bits and pieces in here, and after I've finished all the unboxings and showing you what's going on, I think the rest of the day is going to be spent clearing the place out and tidying up a bit. But let's just have a look at what's come in the post first. I have to excuse the state of the bench. It's in the middle of designing the new cyclone system for the vacuum, and it's looking at the bits and pieces of resin that I'm casting off the thing I've just got to mill the front for. But let's have a look and see what we've got that's arrived and what this is. First off, a big box of here. Right, yes. When I'd redesigned the system of extracts for about the third or fourth time, and the cyclone system for the vacuum, I found I was short of a couple of pieces. So really this is just another corner piece and an outlet to take a hose that the vacuum system will sit on a wheeled cart, and the outlet will be like that at the back, and that will go and plug into the wall system of, get one, these, there'll be one of these at low level on the wall, and those will plug in together. I think that's a 5-inch, but it will give me a way of getting the two together. The cart will then be able to move in and out, and I'll be able to get the extract connected up to that. So that's those two bits that I've been waiting for. I can start building the vacuum now. Oh, what have we got here? Box. The box is just a straightforward plastic cased electrical component. And depending on when it comes out, it's a hack I'm doing for the Triton router table. I need to somehow secure that outlet, so that will go inside the box. That will be mounted on the lid of the box and fitted in, and then I can have some outlets on it. So that one's coming up in the TWX router table as a fix I've got for a problem I had with it trying to kill me. So that's that one. We've got some mini casters. These are a lot lighter weight than the ones I've got on all my rolling carts, but they're only 30mm in depth. This is for the bottom of the extract system, so that it will roll. It's not carrying a massive amount of weight, but I needed it as low as possible in order to get as much as possible volume for the sawdust box at the bottom. And the bigger that was, or the taller that was, the higher up the whole system came, and it got to the point where I didn't want it to end up more than 1 metre high. So that was that one. That one I'd opened earlier. That is again part of the extract system. That's some little magnetic reed switches, and those are to go in the very simplified dust blast gates I've got. The magnet will go onto the bottom of the blast gate, the sensor will go down here, and as and when it comes down it will switch the power to on, and that should then activate the vacuum system, so that when you open the blast gate it will run, but you won't be able to run the blast gates without having one of them open. Otherwise you end up with the vacuum trying to suck the whole system dry, and nowhere for the air to come in. And that one is and that is also part of it, another relay for, this is a 12-volt relay that will control 240 volts. So at the end of these blast gate switches you'll then be able to, the 12 volts will then switch the mains and switch the vacuum on. So that's what that one's for. I've got that wrong previously. I bought another one of those the other week, but it was a 240 volt relay, so that was no good to me at all. And this is spare parts for a Katsu router, which by now I think you've seen the video for. This was a router that I bought the other day, and whilst it was only £30, it was pretty much wrecked when it arrived. It had got a very poor control switch, which I've subsequently found out what the problem is, but that's a replacement one. And it had got a damaged cog on the sleeve that rolls up and down, that sets the depth on the router, and that is a replacement cog, I hope. Looks like I've got the arm, I don't know about the cog. But I worked on the basis that for £30 it wasn't really worth worrying too much. Yes, that's the cog. So we can fit that. That's the Katsu router, and that, well, I'm working backwards. I think the video for that will have already gone out by the time this is unboxed. So that's all the unboxing. That's sorted all the junk out and got rid of some of the waste in here. I'll put these away, tidy the place up, and in the meantime I'm off to the other workroom and you can see how I've got on with the not the unboxing, look at me. You'll have a chance to see how I get on with the milling of the resin. Now this is the 3D print that was originally done for these castings, and on the face of it doesn't look too bad, but it's difficult to tell without it being finished in any way. And I did some casts of it, and you can probably see a lot better on that with a uniform finish that the brickwork doesn't really look that good. So effectively what we've got to do is take out all these bits of brickwork here and leave the detail on the arch and the sills, things like that. So it's just a matter of taking that part off. My second man cave for this, I've got a workroom in the house which I've previously used for my on-railway work and any sort of small fine detail work. There's a kitchen unit that's been converted there to with an old sewing machine lift mechanism that gives me one of the little lathes that's inside that cupboard. I can just lift it straight out without having to set it up and once that's plugged in, it's ready to go. Just taking the machine vise off there to leave the milling table that was attached to the lathe. Effectively I'm going to be hand milling this. I'd sanded the castings down to a consistent thickness and just basically then pushing the material into the router bit by hand and controlling it that way. There's not a great deal of risk of it grabbing or anything. It's quite nice to work with as a material. It's soft and therefore it was just more of a slog than anything to make sure that it didn't dig into any of the areas that were wanted. I just dealt with it section by section and kept having to clean the workpiece out because of the amount of dust that builds up. And that's the finished article with the brickwork taken off. You can see a new piece of the plasticard brickwork set in the bottom there that shows a much better finish. So then all I had to do was cut some more pieces of the embossed plastic card that I've got to fit the remaining spaces. That's just basically done with a sharp craft knife. The biggest difficulty was just the arched top area, but fortunately I've got a small circle cutter with a craft knife blade in it, which helped me get that radius right. Once all the pieces had been cut and fitted, I just then used the butanone adhesive, which I use. It melts the plastic, it doesn't affect the resin at all, but this wasn't really needed to do anything other than temporarily stick that brickwork onto the resin because it was going to have castings made from it again, so it only had to hold for the length of time that it would take me to do the mouldings. It's I think it's methyl ethyl ketone, the chemical in it. Just melts the plastic. And that just finished the job off ready for the next stage. A little bit of filler then. This just shows the difference between working on small scale models and woodworking projects. The difference is in the amount of both the amount of filler and the tools that you use to do it, but it was just to fill very slight cracks that around the edges, and so you only needed a tiny piece. Well, that was the routering finished. Like all of these little jobs that you get asked to do, it didn't end there. Of course, once I got approval from them for the work that I'd done, they then wanted 20 odd copies of it, so that will be a video in a couple of weeks' time showing how I make the moulds and then cast from them for the parts. And this is not just something for model railway work, it's something that you can use on anything where you want a reasonably small quantity of odd shaped items casting. It's not particularly expensive, and hopefully I'll show you how that's done. It'll be in a couple of weeks' time. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please press like and subscribe, share it with your friends, and I'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. Bye!